Welcome to Flickin' Reel, your friendly neighborhood fancast. Today is October 12th, and we are your source for news, reviews, and daily discourse. On today's show, I'm joined by the very witty, very wise Mr. Scott Foxx.
Good morning.
And at this point, practically my co-host. Alright, well today we're going to talk about the cinematic landscape a bit more of this year, as well as some fun talks of multiverses and killer Kris Kringles. So thank you for joining us, and shall we begin?
Let's do this.
All right. So the first thing we want to talk about, it has been confirmed basically that Jamie Foxx will be joining the third MCU Spider-Man film, assumed to be Electro. That's what all the reports are saying. And then Jamie Foxx himself also put up a fan art saying like, "I'm back, but not blue this time, baby," or whatever. And then he deleted it. It's like, we all saw it before you deleted it.
Yeah, that's one of the things with social media. Once it's up, it's up. There's no way to yank it back down. You could delete the post. Somebody screenshotted it.
When you're a celebrity, yeah. Like, I could get away with deleting something in the first 15 minutes of posting and be like, I regret doing that.
I could get away with deleting something 2 years after I posted it. No one would care. But yes, he's back reprising the role, which, you and I were talking about. Is that the... now the branch between where we're going to see kind of the multiverse version of...
Morbius and things like that.
It certainly is a positive sign. The child in me and my heart still desires also that we would see Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire all Spider-Man in the same movie.
And I don't think Garfield gets enough love. I thought he was a really good Peter Parker.
The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield, I absolutely love. Second one, not as much. I thought there were some misses in that. But the first one, I think it's visually one of the most impressive. The opening sequence of him flying through the city.
The suit never looks better. And I'm talking MCU movies. The suit has never looked better than the second Amazing Spider-Man.
It's a shame because what Marvel could have done with the suit for Tom Holland, it just never really looked. Now, I will say the Iron Spider suit, fantastic.
Right, but it doesn't need the pop-off web textures and stuff. It's meant to look sleek, and my problem with his current costume is that there's no texture, so everything looks it looks like tights. It looks like almost a rubbery...
He's wearing spandex.
Yeah.
And so it could have been better, but yeah, the visuals from The Amazing Spider-Man, the action sequences, the way it was shot, him flying through the city, and then you see the moment where it's reflected off of him, it's beautiful to watch. Even today, and that movie is now, 8 years old? Something like that?
The first Amazing Spider-Man came out the same year as Avengers, so the first one's 8 years old.
Okay, so that one, and the second one, which was only 2 years later, I believe, those visually stood up. They were amazing. And Andrew Garfield was great. So it's one of those things where I feel like some disagreements with the studio, where the studio wanted to go, and then all the issues they had with moving forward. And Sony has never been really the best at handling the Spider-Man universe. And we saw what happened with number 3 for Tobey Maguire. They never actually came to fruition with number 3 for Andrew Garfield. And then they passed the torch. I'm just hoping we actually get that quality third one from Disney and Marvel.
This will both be Tom's third movie, but also his 6th movie?
5th or 6th.
Civil War.
No, you're right.
Homecoming, Far From Home, Infinity War, and Endgame. He was in a little bit. And then, so this will be his 6th film, technically. Just not his 6th.
He wasn't in Endgame a whole lot, but he did come in the clutch in the final sequence.
Listen, there's about 3 moments in Endgame that make my eyes wet every time, and one of them involved Tom Holland in Endgame.
Oh, he did a great job.
Circling back to Electro, what I think is bringing up the Amazing Spider-Man, what I think is interesting is I would argue, as many things as I liked about the Amazing Spider-Man films, Electro was one of the worst parts for me. Jamie Foxx is a fantastic actor. You'll never hear me say anything else. But the way he was written reminded me of a Batman Forever Edward Nygma with Jim Carrey. And it was so unnecessarily goofy, and having him want to take out Spider-Man more or less because someone he didn't know didn't come to his birthday party is one of the lamest things I've ever seen for a villain.
Yep. Let me just say also that if you look at in most of the characters, you will find some semblance, not a perfect one for one, but you'll find some connectivity to the comic book or the cartoon type of characters. There was like Electro in the comic books and in some of the cartoons has a green suit with sadly a yellow star on his face.
It's not the greatest costume.
No, not at all. But they just made Jamie Foxx a blue glowing orb human.
Some of that comes from, I mean, they never gave him a great costume, but the blueness comes from the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, which were a bit more recent. It is an adaptation, but they didn't take anything that makes Max Dillon. They took some of the aesthetics, but the character was not the same character in any way.
No, not at all. Literally his outfit, the way he looked, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later, some foreshadowing about Green Lantern, but it looked like the way they did the suit for Ryan Reynolds as far as Green Lantern, with just the CGI over the body with the mocap suit.
And interesting, Leffy says, I'm not going to be blue in this one, and I'm just thinking, like, is this connected? There's a lot of people who said Electro died in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't think he did. Didn't he just kind of like turn into electricity and like dissipate?
Yeah, he dissipated. He became part of he was absorbed into the grid.
To me, that's not death with that character.
Well, you think of Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen, where it just takes him time to figure out how to reformulate himself. He has to put himself back together after his atoms are pulled apart. Electro, if he's pulled into pure electricity and just has to figure out how to reform himself into a shape, that could
to me that's the equivalent of blowing up Sandman. It's like
he just waits till he regels.
Yeah.
Clayface, same thing.
Yeah. So I'll tell you when Amazing Spider-Man 2 lost me is when Max Dillon fell into the vat of eels, and then he's getting all electrocuted, and it zooms in on the gap between his teeth, and they slide together, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. This movie's over for me. I'm out. But listen, maybe this is a redemption, so I'm not gonna count it out. I could look forward to it. Is it the most exciting multiverse-esque crossover news possibly that we could have? No. Am I waiting eagerly to hear of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield or any other villain? Maybe sans Topher Grace? Yeah. And
I think a nod would be to bring Topher Grace back as literally anybody else other than Eddie Brock. But clearly we have a quality Eddie Brock now, and they're not neither Sony nor Disney is dumb enough to go back and try and think that recasting Tom Holland would be wise at this point in time. So if Topher Grace came back, he would have to be some kind of random bit character, but it would be great to see a nod to him in some way, just to pay tribute, because he was, and I don't think it was him, he wasn't terrible. The way Venom was written and portrayed was the terrible part.
He was making dick jokes, like that's but leaning into us thinking that this is a multiverse, we're not crazy, because also very shortly after, I think less than a week maybe, they announced that Benedict Cumberbatch was going to be taking over the mentor-esque role of Spider-Man 3, and I am of two minds, but I will let you go first. What do you think about the news of Doctor Strange being in Spider-Man 3?
I love it, and Benedict Cumberbatch is a fantastic actor. You can, and I don't think anybody will really debate that or question that.
If you do, you're wrong, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the cool things about that is we also have, while not the mentor role specifically, we do have a little bit of a fun relationship portion. One of my favorite parts when Peter Parker meets Doctor Strange in the spaceship in Infinity War, and he introduces himself. Hi, I'm Peter Parker, and he says, I'm Doctor Strange. He goes, oh, we're using our fake names. I'm Spider-Man. Not realizing that Doctor Strange is literally a doctor. He's a surgeon, one of the best on the planet. And so going by Doctor Strange for him is just who Doctor Strange is. It's not some enigma type name. And so that moment in there of them meeting was beautiful to me. And so I like the idea of him coming through. Plus, Benedict Cumberbatch and the wisdom that Doctor Strange has in his character, I think, is a perfect fit to play that mentor fatherly role, because we got to remember Peter Parker still he lost out on those 5 years. Age-wise, he's still young. And so you're talking about, depending on how many years they put the gap in this movie, he's still only going to be around 20 years old, early 20s at best. And so he needs this figure in his life because it's something that's been missing, and that he desperately clung to. You talked about getting emotional in Endgame. Mm-hmm. That moment between Peter Parker when he comes to Tony as Tony's breathing his last few breaths is incredibly powerful, especially because Tony did the same thing holding on to Peter in Infinity War at the end, which I know most people on Infinity War, that was the moment that got him. When he said he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go, and he's clinging to Iron Man. And at the very end, Peter's clinging to Iron Man as Iron Man's letting go. So powerful. And so to bring Benedict Cumberbatch in as to take up that mantle, I think is a perfect fit. I don't think you could have selected anybody out of the MCU that would have been better for that spot.
I have a few different thoughts. First off, is I'm one of the biggest defenders of the Doctor Strange film and Benedict Cumberbatch of Doctor Strange. It is, I think, my second favorite solo movie. Everyone goes straight to Iron Man. For me, it's Captain America: First Avenger, and then it's Doctor Strange. As far as the origins go, if you go into just solo movies, then it's Winter Soldier and whatever. But I love the character, the mythos, everything surrounding it. And if you're going to start introducing multiverses, Doctor Strange's next movie is literally called Multiverse of Madness. And WandaVision's going to have an impact on that. So I think this whole next phase, other than maybe Black Widow and I don't know about Eternals, is going to be very multiverse-centric. Great, fantastic. That's how you do it. I would love a Spider-Man Doctor Strange team-up movie. What worries me is the wording of the article where it says mentor role. One of the reasons I didn't love Homecoming is they lean so heavily on Tony being the mentor and not letting Spider-Man be Spider-Man. And it's one of the reasons I really enjoyed Far From Home is it felt like Spider-Man growing up. Because Happy was there and like Nick Fury was there, but he didn't have Tony to save his back. It was Spider-Man relying on himself to beat Mysterio. Like pretty much everything he did to beat Mysterio was on his shoulders. And now I feel like if you're telling me that he has another mentor going forward when he is, like you said, 20 college years, I was like, this is Spider-Man. He's not Spider-Boy. He can stand on his own. This can be a team-up movie. He doesn't need another dad. He doesn't need an Uncle Ben. So I'm a little resistant to that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because they've handled Spider-Man so well in both Far From Home and all the movies he's guest starred in. But it gives me a little bit of mixed feelings. I am going to say not cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously very excited.
I will, to not rebuff that, but to comment on it, I think there's a way you can balance that. And
there is.
Marvel has done a great job of handling characters in secondary roles in other people's movies. And so to do a team-up movie, whether you're doing that in Multiverse of Madness and you're going to bring Spider-Man into that realm, or you're going to bring Doctor Strange over into the Spider-Verse, either way, there's an opportunity for that relationship to foster, and whether it's a direct mentor or more of a subtle thing. Like Tony almost stepped over in Homecoming as he was doing more of a fatherly role than maybe was
that's
necessary.
What I don't want. But that first part you talk about being like subtle and just having an older character for Spider-Man to work off of, I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. That could be totally good. I just don't need Spider-Dad 2. What
I think would be looking at the character of who Benedict Cumberbatch and how he plays Doctor Strange. He's much more I want to say arrogant.
Yeah,
and that played against Tony perfectly because they were both confident they were smarter than the other guy. And I think that could play in where maybe that dynamic is one where he gives him a little bit more of the tough love and tells him straight exactly as it is. And that might be beneficial for toughening up Spider-Man to actually make that complete transition into being Spider-Man away from, like you said, Spider-Boy. But it's all has to do with how they actually grow that relationship. But I think the character of Doctor Strange would be one where the tough love, tell him the truth, and don't cut right to the chase. He doesn't mess around. When he talked with Thor in Ragnarok, he's just at the beginning when they're bringing him in and they're cutting the scenes and everything. He's cutting like, why did you bring this guy to my city? Like he doesn't mess around. He's just Like, why'd you do this? This guy's a criminal. And he drops him into the netherworld for Loki so he can talk to Thor. And even when he's talking to Thor, he's cutting scenes. It's very to the point. And that could be beneficial for the relationship there as well. So I like it, but I agree. Cautious. Because you can easily overdo something like that.
Yeah, it could very well be, and I think I can anticipate it being very well done. And it's just the wording of the article that made me prickle up a little bit. I'm like, don't do Homecoming again, please. I'm ready for more. He was supposed to be like 15-ish in Homecoming. That's okay. He's not 15 anymore.
I think the biggest thing for me is just that we're getting more Doctor Strange. Like you said, you are a huge fan of the movie. The movie is fantastic. I was late on the arrival on that. I didn't see it in the theater. I had to wait till it came home. And even at that, I was a little bit behind on finally watching Doctor Strange. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really good. So well done, so well crafted, built the character beautifully. And then at the end, the way he uses the time loop and dies thousands of times, but traps, I can't remember his name, but traps the guy. Dormammu. Traps him in basically a death spiral. Like, hey, we're just going to keep reliving this moment for eternity until you decide to stop. And Dormammu thinks it's a joke until about number whatever thousands, and then comes to realize, gosh, this guy's got me. Just genius. So I love the character, and more of him, the better. And so, yeah, I'm again, the relationship, cautiously optimistic, but just having more Benedict Cumberbatch in movies, excellent.
I completely agree. My last thought that I'll say before I move into the next topic here is something that was brought to my attention that's great. Did you hear who they replaced Scott Derrickson with as the director for Doctor Strange 2?
No.
Sam Raimi.
Ooh.
So here's the funny thing. Sam Raimi is going to be directing Multiverse of Madness, possibly introducing and opening us up to the opportunity to meet Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, in the Spider-Man movie.
I can't tell you how... I did not know that, but just hearing the name Sam Raimi, immediately I think the original trilogy for Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and the fact that could be the gap... or
Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange is going to meet MCU's Spider-Man, and then we're talking about multiverses. How can you not? Right?
Oh my God. Let me just say, Spider-Man number 2 with Tobey Maguire for a long time stood as the benchmark for a Spider-Man movie. And it was so well done.
I think both X-Men and Spider-Man were the rare example of the sequel can be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Until Phoenix kills everybody on the planet. But anyways.
I said the sequel, not sequels.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to one of the last times that we were together, we talked about what was left for this year as far as movies go and what we expected to happen with those. And in just... it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
It all fell apart.
Yes.
We don't have any of it anymore.
Literally overnight.
I don't know if there's anything like still coming out or supposed to at this point. Wonder Woman's out. Dune's out. What else?
James Bond got moved.
I think I already said Dune. Yeah, so it's a whole mess. And part of what caused a lot of it, first, it was a, what do you call it, effect? Not a waterfall, but...
Cascade.
Yeah, it was a cascade or snowball effect.
There you go.
007 moved. They had all the reason in the world to. They just didn't see a great landscape to release their film. And when they did, Regal's like, all right, well, that was one of our last big movies to come out this year. We're just shutting down all our theaters until a better time. And Regal is the second largest theater distribution company in the U.S. And so when they closed down, then just came... like you said, a cascade of other movies that are all like, well, we're out. And Disney kept saying, we're sticking with our soul spots. The Pixar Soul is going to come out. I think it was supposed to be late November or December. I forget. They kept saying it. And finally, like last week, they're like, it's coming straight to Disney Plus. But unlike Mulan, no charge.
Again, this is something we touched on in our last podcast. If you want to hear it, go back and listen. But we touched on the fact that was poorly handled by Disney in how they overcharged for Mulan. It was only really a rental fee. It wasn't a permanent ownership. There was a lot of problems with charging $30 on top of your $7 a month fee for Disney Plus. The mishandling of that, clearly they learned from. Use Soul as a means to boost subscriptions. You're getting your money back on the back end on that. But just put it out there. they missed heavily with Mulan. And Mulan, we were talking about it last time, is at this point it needs to rake in another 200 million just to get to even. It was a giant loss for them. And so with Soul, clearly they've learned a little bit of a lesson. I still think there could have been something better as far as maybe charging a decreased rate to get it early. But they have the platform built in. So,
and it's coming out Christmas Day. So like, what better way to spend the holidays than jump on Disney Plus and watch Soul with your family?
Oh, absolutely.
And what I think is interesting is that I lost my thought on Soul. Did you have anything else you want to say about Soul?
No, I think Disney. It's one of those movies where it's at least from the previews and everything, it appears to be kind of the line with Inside Out as far as that emotional thing to help, specifically for kids to be able to help discover emotions a little bit and understand how that all works. My kids absolutely love Inside Out. So Soul really was one that I was looking forward to because I have 4 kids. And so anything that can kind of not just be good entertainment, but also have a positive message inside of it about dealing with emotions and those things, or your soul, there's hopefully a lot of good that can be in this movie. I'm just glad that they decided to go straight for it. I'm already paying $7 a month to Disney plus tax or whatever it is. So just to be able to get that is great. We'll definitely watch it.
My thought came back to me. So what I think is being well handled by Disney is that just yesterday, I believed, a lot of the critics that got to see early screenings of Soul Disney has allowed them to release their reviews, and all the early reviews for Soul are outstanding. How convenient to have all these outstanding reviews for Soul leading up to Christmas where people are buying things, Disney Plus subscription. I think this is just basically an $150 million investment into Disney Plus.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I'll be honest, with Soul, you're getting what it looks like you're getting.
Sure.
With Mulan, you didn't get what you thought you were getting. You did not get a live-action remake of an animated movie. You got a new telling of a actual person and their story told in a way that is completely different to the way they depicted it in the animated movie. But they did that off the heels of a bunch of shot-for-shot remakes.
Right.
And so I think people got sold a bag of goods on Mulan. Not that it's a bad movie, it's that it wasn't what people thought they were getting. With Soul, you're getting what you're getting. So I think even for the critics, they walked in and they got the movie. But even critics are not, they're not immune to expectation. They go into a movie thinking they're going to see something.
Especially like MCU, where you get conditioned to expect.
Yeah, the expectation. When you have an expectation and you go in and you see something and it is not what you thought, it either needs to exceed your expectation, and anything less alters your perception of the movie. Where I think that was one of the hazards with Mulan, is it was not what kind of, maybe that Disney didn't even intend to build it that way, but the fans took it as though, hey, this is just another remake. And that's not what they got. Whereas with Soul, people, even the critics, you went in and after seeing the trailers and everything, I'm sure they got what they thought they were getting. And if it's heartfelt, warming, and moves you emotionally, which Disney is great about doing, that ticks all the boxes.
And expectations go both ways. When you have no or little expectation, something can blow you out of the water if it's just good. With Soul, people expect Disnar? That's the new name for Disney Pixar.
Disnar.
For Disnar movies, the expectation is that it's going to be good, but you don't have any really exact expectations on how you're going to feel or anything like that. So it just needs to be great, and then you're excited. But what works against expectations a lot of the times is nostalgia. And yes. Mulan had the case of being both a nostalgic film that people had lived with for almost 2 decades, and then on top of that, it's a great movie in its own right. So you had both of those, and then you do a live-action movie that has none of it, either the heart, the nostalgia. They just took everything that could benefit a movie like that out. And then Soul is just going to be more of what we come to expect with Disney, instead of letting us down, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's
also, by the way, Disnar trademark, flicking real.
yeah.
But the
I'm gonna use that. It's
the other one I just want to comment on that was I know this is off on a tangent, but we were talking about the emotional connection portion, and I think while Mulan was kind of a bait and switch as far as what people expected and what was delivered, the lack of emotion would be more reflective of what happened with Lion King, where the animated movie connects to the heart really well. And that was the one biggest gripe, is that while the movie was a shot for shot and everything felt a lot or looked a lot like just a live action version of the original movie, it was beautiful. It did not connect emotionally. You didn't get as invested in those characters in the same way. And so that's a really challenging thing. And if Soul, which according to the reviews is one of those things what really did, that makes all the difference. In a family movie, an emotional connection makes a world of difference. Also, that's one of the dangers of remakes, is that people grew up with an emotional connection to the movie, and then in their adulthood, they still feel that way about the movie.
right.
I love The Sword and the Stone. All right, that's one of my favorite movies as a kid. And fortunately, while there have been all kinds of different King Arthur stories, nobody's really taken a crack at Sword and the Stone, because I love it. But as an adult, I showed my kids it, and they're like, I don't know. I was like, oh, well, that's deflating, because I loved that movie.
As do I.
Yeah, and occasionally my kids, or my son Levi, he's my third son, he likes it, but I think he likes it because Dad likes it. And so finding those connections with the kids. But there are other Disney movies that my kids are absolutely in love with, but as an adult, I'm kind of like, I don't know, whatever. But it's certainly a person-to-person thing. But I'm excited for Disney and the fact that they're getting positive response. That's good. Means hopefully they'll keep making money and keep making movies, and that they decided to just put this on the platform, to bring it back around, put it on the platform free of charge, correct that mistake that happened with Mulan. And you know, I think Mulan could have been better if they hadn't gotten greedy and said $30. I think there's a finer point. Maybe both of those movies, Mulan and Soul, could have been $10.
Or 15.
Or
even.
15 even. $30
15
for
if you think
a
an
rental?
average audience is like 3 people maybe. It's like $5 a person, which I think, considering it's not a theater, half price, I think is reasonable.
Oh, I have 4 kids plus my wife and I, so there's 6 of us. So $15 is less than half price to go to the movie. Right. So
I'm just saying $5 a person is about half of $10 a person.
Oh no, totally,
so
yeah.
For 3 people, that's about.
I like watching IMAX, so it's $18 a person, but whatever.
I like A-List, which is $23 a month, and lots of Dolby movies.
How's that panning out with the theater closed? Oh, anyways.
Whoa. Well, okay, so actually, I need to circle back before we go to our next topic, because I skipped over something a little bit. When we were talking about Regal closing, I think most of us assumed AMC would be closely behind because there's nothing out. So what I just found out is, at least locally, I don't know who's listening or where you're at, but here in Washington, we have not had really any theaters open. There has been some random smaller ones, like up in Olympia and stuff, that have been open, but nothing near here. Inslee just said that is our governor, for anyone that doesn't know. They are looking to open theaters, and it sounds like they're opening, I don't remember the exact number, but several AMC theaters, and I looked up, the 2 closest to me at this location will be opening up in, say, the 12th, so in like 4 or 5 days.
Yep. Which is great. Then you'll be able to go see Tenet.
Yeah. We're making jokes, and everyone's like, too bad there's nothing to watch. I was like, Tenet 5 times, let's go.
Hey, just getting back into the theater.
It's been a thirst.
And one thing for our state with the phased opening is that means if your county is in phase 2, you can have 25% capacity. If your county's in phase 3, you can have 50% capacity. That's still an opportunity for theaters to make some money. And they can do that on reduced staffing. They can even cut the number of screens they're operating. They don't need to run them all. But it's a chance to get some dollars back and to pad the stats. The biggest thing probably for them will be the concessions, because that's where they make their money anyways. And we know that some of the theaters are going to be running some retro movies, some older throwback stuff.
Which I'm down for. Empire Strikes Back. Let's go. I'll be there.
To be honest, there's a lot of great older movies, and you and I are
Kindred Spirits?
Kindred Spirits as far as the love for the actual big screen. Being in the theater, seeing it on the large canvas is where it needs to be. There's certain movies that have to have that.
I saw Jurassic Park, and it's like, it was either 20th or 25th anniversary, and came out the year I was born, so I did not see it in theaters.
Because I'm old, I did see that in the
theater,
and it was
but
it was worth it.
I hate that it was like a post 3D converted version of Jurassic Park because they're like, oh, it's the anniversary 3D. I'm like, bleh. But still, seeing animatronic dinosaurs on the big screen is just the best. And I saw it with my dad. Me and my dad never go see movies together because he's not a movie guy, but loves that movie. That was a great time.
Yeah, that movie is amazing. Now, as far as the retroactive 3D conversion, never as good as a movie that's filmed in 3D. You can tell the difference immediately.
Oh, yeah.
I remember going to see the right after Avatar. There's a bunch of 3D movies that were really, really good, including the Jim Carrey version of The Christmas Carol, which animated 3D. You felt like snowflakes were hitting you in the face. And then right on the heels of that was the Sam Worthington Clash of the Titans movie, which was a post-production 3D conversion. And it looked so bad on the 3D on the big screen that was like, woo.
Also a bad movie, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to... You know what? I will say this. I enjoy it, mostly because I really love Greek and... I love mythology as a whole, but it's one of those things.
But it's not.
No, it's an entertaining movie.
Sure.
The action, the visuals, and everything. Plus, you get to see Liam Neeson versus Ralph Fiennes battling out as Hades and Zeus, and it's good as far as entertainment value. You're right. Nobody's putting that up for an Oscar other than maybe special effects or sound editing.
Thinking of Wrath of the Titans was the really bad one.
The second one was Wrath of the Titans. That's where they go against.
Kraken?
No, the Kraken's in the first one. Okay. The second one is where it's Zeus's father, the...
is that Kronos or something?
Kronos, thank you. Man, nice pull.
I like Kronos. Greek mythology. It had nothing to do with the movie.
But it's one of those things where that movie was a post-production conversion to 3D, which is always a letdown. Jurassic Park, you don't need to see in 3D. You need to just watch it as it was, because it was as good in 2017 as it was in 1992 or 93 or... whatever that conversion for 80 years.
Much smaller film, but I'll say one of my favorite 3D experiences was Dread 3D. Carl Urban.
Oh,
that was fantastic. Like gory, but like it's just like blood, slow motion seeping out into the middle of the theater. It's get all up in there. Anyway, so battle of the streaming services. We were talking about Disney Plus. Now we have a new topic on HBO Max, and it was probably about a year and a half ago, roughly, that they announced that some of the people from CW were going to be coming over and working on very different because it's on HBO. But at the time they said HBO, now it's HBO Max, and it's a Green Lantern show, and it got the green light. And it's set to include several Green Lantern core characters. They included Jessica Cruz, Guy Gardner, I believe Simon Baz is one of them. But noticeably absent is Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and Kyle Rayner. I think that's the trinity of Green Lanterns.
Which would lead you to believe those have been reserved for a Green Lantern Corps movie.
That is the only saving grace for me. That's the only thing you could tell me that would make me say okay, because...
Guy Gardner is one of the most annoying, obnoxious, but still cool characters in the Green Lantern universe. But
he's fun, but you don't want to follow him for a whole franchise.
Yeah, well, it depends on how they do it. But that gives me hope that we will see Kyle Rayner and Jonathan Stewart, and especially Hal Jordan. Now, I know I am in an extreme minority on this point, but I happen to really like Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan. I liked the Green Lantern movie. There were a lot of flaws with that movie, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I liked Ryan Reynolds as that character because he's a little bit cocky. No, he's very cocky and arrogant, and he pulled off the hip fighter pilot kind of attitude. I really enjoyed him in that. Disappointing to see him move out, but we've seen a laundry list of people attached to who's going to play the Hal Jordan, who's going to play Jonathan Stewart, and you got guys like Boss Logic out there doing fan art that just blow your mind when they insert Armie Hammer as Hal Jordan.
Well, some of these people are amazing. A decade they kept doing art as Idris Elba as Jon Stewart, but I think he's now starting to get a little on in the years for starting a franchise.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things you could do, like Sterling K. Brown or the guy they just cast for Kang from Lovecraft Country. I can't think of his name. Would be great casting. one thing that also makes me optimistic is they've been saying that HBO Max is going to be kind of an expansion of the DC universe. That's why they're doing that like Gotham PD show with please help me on his name, the new Gordon. Do you know his name? Jeffrey Wright?
I think that's right.
Okay. And he's going to be in the HBO show, playing Gordon in both the HBO show and in the Batman show. So I think what this could be is this is how we expand the Green Lantern universe. And then, like you said, some of the main stars we'll put in the movies. And then when they interact with the Green Lantern Corps, it's the cast from the show.
Okay.
And creating some unity.
Snyder Cut.
Had to come up once.
What do you think the odds are? Oh, and just real quickly, thank you HBO for getting rid of the 17 different names for your streaming service and just going with HBO Max. Because HBO Go, HBO Now, HBO whatever else you had going
HBO
on.
O, HBO 2.
Oh my gosh. It was ridiculous. But now that they have that, with Snyder Cut coming, in the original, there was hint that they were going to sneak a Green Lantern into Justice League with Zack Snyder. And so does this give us hope that maybe somewhere in that 5.5 hours of rough cut that he's got, that he slid a Green Lantern into the film somehow? Because that was also one of the teasers in the original trailer. There was a moment where
Steppenwolf?
No.
Oh.
Well, in those early scenes, you could see Green Lanterns kind of streaking through the sky. But there's also a moment where Alfred says, I thought you wouldn't, or let's hope you're not too late, you know? And in that moment, there was a hint of possible green reflected in his glasses in one of the original trailers. And people thought, oh, did a Green Lantern just show up into the Batcave? Clearly, we know that was Superman appearing. Right. But this tease that maybe Zack Snyder snuck in somebody as Green Lantern into the movie, being a big-time Green Lantern fan, I desperately hope that there's somebody intermixed in this movie.
In some of the first two trailers, you hear, the reason I brought up Steppenwolf is he says there's, Earth has no protectors anymore, no Kryptonians, no lanterns, and I'm like, and then that line got taken out of the movie, I'm like, you sons of guns.
Yep. Unless they did something somewhere else in the universe to draw all the lanterns away, or killed all the lanterns, but I would assume drew them away somewhere else. But I too was with you when you hear that line. You're like, okay, like, what's that mean? Does that mean that one's coming back in order to help?
And there's all these rumors of it, the Justice League ending with like a battered Hal Jordan like arriving on Earth, being like Darkseid's coming. And I'm like, I'm sure that's not true, or those just fan cast rumors, but I'd be so excited for that. Here's a concern, aside from them not having any of our main guys, but we think we've explained that away. Seth Grahame-Smith has been set to be the showrunner for this show. And he's known for Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, and Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp.
So are we getting a zombie? Literally, he's got 3 zombie movies basically in here, or 3 monster movie type things in here. Are we getting a Green Lantern versus the Dark Universe?
Blackest Night. That is literally a zombie story with Green Lanterns.
Well, that's a good nugget to pull out. That would be awesome. What a weird direction to take a TV series.
I was more just going to say that those are... I haven't seen Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, but the other 2 are pretty awful. Just really, really bad. So I'm concerned because I think he did a lot of the writing on those. But I just got to hope that HBO Max knows their stuff because they have a really great track record.
Yeah, that one with Johnny Depp, Dark Shadows, was not a highlight for his career. And Johnny Depp's done some weird stuff, but usually he does the weird stuff with like Tim Burton.
Yeah.
That was a big whiff.
It's also like really forgotten about. Like all of a sudden you say that Dark Shadows movie, Johnny Depp, people go, oh yeah.
No, most people would go, what?
Or what? Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's this, that film is one of those that is easily removed from the entire movieverse zeitgeist, and it's like not even thought of. It's not a verb that anybody uses.
And it also had Chloe Grace Moretz in it, which is completely forgotten. She was like a werewolf or something.
It was bad. But if anything, at least Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, or isn't that what it was?
Hunter Slayer.
Vampire Hunter. That was at least semi-entertaining. I mean, it was dumb.
I will argue I need more than semi-entertaining for my Green Lantern show.
Oh, no, absolutely. But then you're also going to have a difference in the way that you're going to tell the story, because if it's going to be a show, you can break that up. And they're obviously going to surround him with good quality writers. The question is, who's currently overseeing the DC universe as a whole?
I want to say it's Kevin Tsuchihara, which recently changed after I'd have to look it up. There was one guy that was working it, and around a lot of the mess, the BVS, the Justice League and stuff, he got laid off because he made a lot of mistakes. And then this new guy has pretty much been responsible for the success of Aquaman, Black Panther, or not Black Panther, but Joker. I don't know why I said Black Panther. Aquaman, Joker, Birds of Prey was kind of already in motion, but a lot of the successes that DC has started to have, Shazam, which didn't make a crazy amount of money, but was very well received.
It's still one of the better rated.
I think you and me have the same top 3 probably.
Well, Man of Steel is clearly number 1 by a landslide.
And then Shazam and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Then you could, I mean, there's not as deep of a catalog to line out.
Right.
But after those ones, if you're talking about the modern MCU, you're going, at least for you and I, Man of Steel. I go Shazam, then Wonder Woman. Some people will flip Wonder Woman and Shazam. Now, Wonder Woman is still one of the top rated and highest grossing as well. Aquaman's up there too, but yeah, Shazam is...
It's just not top 3 for me.
Shazam for me, well, you know that I'm a Shazam nerd. But it emotionally, of those movies, connected on a way, and I'm a parent,
right?
So the stuff with a kid in that movie, you seeing Billy Batson as a
cheap
child,
shots.
Oh man, it just breaks your heart. And when he finds out that his mother doesn't want him, or it's inconvenient for him to come track her down, guts you with, like, somebody might as well just came up and shanked me in the stomach. It was so brutal.
It reminds me of some of the recent Taika Waititi movies I've seen, in the way that it's like the whole movie is like zany fun. And then when it wants to hit you in the heart, it hits hard.
The way they played the flashback sequences throughout that movie, it was beautifully done. Beautifully done. Now, don't show it to your kids, because, man, the 7 deadly sins are about as intimidating and scary as you can get.
Well, that's what happens when you get the director of Lights Out.
Of a horror movie?
David S. Sandberg or David A. Sandberg, something like that. Yeah. But
good movie, though. But yeah, I'm excited for the future of the DC universe, whether it's the DC EU or the DC universe, however you want to do it. But if they're going to bridge it between film and movie and put all those pieces together, at least the recent stuff has been looking a lot better. The problem I think that Zack Snyder ran into was, and you and I are of like mind on this, that Warner Brothers got their hands on stuff.
Right. And
Warner Brothers thinks that there's a runtime that people can deal with, and there's a runtime that they can't. Yet we know from Marvel that you can go 2.5 to 3 hours easy on a movie, and people, as long as it's a good movie, the runtime doesn't matter as much. You can have an incredible movie that's short, or you can have a super long crappy movie. Now you flip that, and you can have a short movie that's absolute garbage, or you can be completely engrossed and engaged in a 3.5-hour movie and not even feel it because it's that good.
Just sliding in that I saw Endgame 5 times in theaters, 3 hours and some change.
Yeah, and didn't faze you whatsoever.
Nope.
And that's the thing, is this idea that, and that's one of the problems that Warner had, is they kept thinking they needed to shorten it in order to make it palatable for people. And I would rather have a longer, cohesive, complete story than that hacked up piece of garbage that they pushed out as Justice League, which I still find entertaining, but man, is it got a lot of problems. And then on top of that, they did the same thing to Batman v Superman. The Ultimate Edition fixed so much, not perfect, but it fixed so much by correcting the storyline, adding in all the plot holes that were left you questioning things. Those would have all been answered if we had only seen that the first time. So,
and I did a little fact. Hello, Flick and Reel listeners. This is Jesse, and I just wanted to interject really quick. During the recording of this podcast, I did not have the time to look up and do some fact checking, and so I just wanted to correct some of the mistakes I made in this podcast. the current head of DC over at Warner Brothers is Walter Hamada, and he is the one that has made a lot of the positive changes to the studio and is responsible for some of the successes of Joker and Aquaman and how well Shazam did critically, and just overseeing a much better movement for the DC universe. And before that, it was Kevin Tsujihara, and it was Kevin that was responsible for the mishaps with Justice League by continuously pushing the movie despite directors asking for more time on it, just so they could get their annual budget, like we said in the podcast. Anyways, I just wanted to clear that up and not have people think that I am uneducated. I just got a little confused. So after fact check, there we go. Kevin Tsujihara versus Walter Hamada. Walter, we have you to thank. All right, thank you. Hamada was the one that came in and said, we are trying too hard to be our competitors instead of being our own thing. And it was because of him that he's like, let's make this good movie and this good movie, and later we will worry about how they connect to each other. That's why Batman seems to really be its own thing. Joker was its own thing. But then we have these movies that are going to come out, Shazam 2, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. So they have multiverses happening. And then we're getting this Flash movie. And everyone's like, hey, let's do Flashpoint Paradox. And then he's like, yeah, let's get Michael Keaton. Let's get Ben Affleck. Let's just do the whole thing.
The great thing about the Wonder Woman series is that she's immortal, so you can go back in time.
Sure.
So you had the World War II 1940s Wonder Woman. Now you got Wonder Woman 84, which is going to have all the retro feels from the 1980s, and I'm excited for that movie. But with her, the continuity doesn't have to be as buttoned down because she's so much older than everybody else, and so her movies don't really have to connect. It easier lifts out, and you can do those movies without having to worry about this one random person was like, that was 40 years ago. 1984 literally is 36 years ago. Like nobody cares about the crossover or what was happening. It doesn't have to line up perfectly. The one big question will be, well, then how does that work in with Pattinson and the Batman movie? And we'll see down the road. But like you said, I'm more concerned about all these standalones being quality than I am about one big team up, because they've already botched that.
You said Pattinson. I have to remind myself that movie's now coming out in 2022.
2022 is how far I got pushed?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a gut punch.
They started writing that movie, I believe, in 2018.
Yeah. I thought it was 2017.
It might be 2017.
When Ben Affleck because Ben Affleck wrote the original script for it and then handed it over to Matt Reeves. And then when he pulled out of the project completely, then it was a matter of Matt Reeves then reworking that script in order to build it going forward and then finding a new Batman. But it's been such a long in process. The hope is, though, Robert Pattinson is young enough.
He's got to be 40 when the first movie comes out. It's not true, but I'm just saying.
It'll feel like that, I'm sure, for him. But it'll be one of the largest aging between first and second movies that we'll have. But he's still young enough to be able to pull off playing Batman for 3 or 4 movies. I just don't want to see a situation where we end up rotating through Batman rapidly, or where every 5 years we're restarting the franchise again, like we've done, like Marvel or like Sony did, where we're constantly new Batman, and I got to find out how they're going to retell the same old crap origin story one more time. Like, everyone knows his parents were shot in an alley. Everyone knows Uncle Ben got shot, and that Peter Parker was raised by his aunt. Like, we've heard the origin story enough. We don't need restarts, and so that's my hope, is that Robert Pattinson will be able to carry forward, and hopefully having somebody at the helm to navigate that for them and keep them pointing in one direction and focus on quality. Everything that goes onto the screen needs to be quality. The rest will take care of itself.
All right. Final topic. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. What do we got coming up, Scott?
The Fatman. Oh my gosh.
I put off watching this trailer for a week because I didn't know what it was.
I saw the trailer online, and I saw a couple comments on it through the
new Mel Gibson movie for anyone listening.
Through the Fancast Facebook page, and that we're both a part of the group, and I saw some comments from some of our mutual friends, and one of them said, "I finally watched this ridiculousness." And that comment,
that was me.
Oh yeah, I saw that comment, and I was like, "All right, I gotta see what this is about." And when I played it and found out that the Fatman was a Santa Claus movie, referencing the Fatman, and then to find out how intense the trailer is, it's so over the top, ridiculous good. He's getting hired by the
Walton
FBI.
Goggins.
Oh yes, when he comes out and he's like, "I'm here for the Fatman," and Mel Gibson's like, "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." I'm like, "Oh, let's do this." There's blood and guts.
I was like crying watching this movie.
Watch out for Comet. He'll bite your nuts off. The stuff that they put into the trailer for that, I can only imagine how over the top the movie will be.
So I'm gonna give a synopsis of what the trailer shows. So it starts out and it's like, you know, the legend. And at first, if you don't know this or you're not listening to this, you're like, what legend? What is this? And you find out that Mel Gibson as Santa Claus is talking about some kids with like a buck rifle, a deer rifle, shot some holes in his sled, and it cuts to like military guys asking him to work as like, I guess, a mercenary or something for them, and it shows this kid that got coal for Christmas, and he hires Walton Goggins to go kill Santa for giving him coal. And I was like, how did they make it through the full production of this movie?
It's so over the top. The fact that it's a kid a rich kid trying to track down, and when he says, "I want Santa Claus's head," and the guy and Walter Goggins is like, "Yeah, I don't do that."
What is that? He said, well, heads rot. He's like, okay, give me his beard. I was like, I'm not cutting off a dead man's beard.
Or no, I'm not shaving a dead man.
Yeah.
So good. And Mel Gibson just seems intense, almost like he's tired, like he loves being Santa Claus, but he's so fed up with people's crap with him being Santa that he's almost done with this. It's so good and over the top. But
somebody's asking the elves how they like are as old as they are, and they're like, oh, is it the same thing with I think they might have said Chris or Kris Kringle or something like that, and they're like, no, it's the giving that keeps him young. And I'm like, well, he looks like hell.
Oh man, yeah, he looks just haggard, and you see him like he's changing, and he's got like wounds all over where he got hit with the buckshot in his side, and just it's so good. It completely caught me off guard when I watched it because I had no idea what they were meaning by the Fatman, and because the Fatman sounds like a mafia nickname for somebody, right? Yeah. And then you find out it's Santa Claus, the jolly old Fatman, and they're like somebody's hunting him down, and then it's Mel Gibson who is playing. Literally, it feels like you took his character Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon and inserted him as Santa Claus because he's got that kind of attitude to him, like I don't care type of attitude.
For obvious reasons, we've seen that other than like Daddy's Home and Expendables 3, I think he really hasn't done a movie in like 10 plus years or so. And then all of a sudden he comes back with what? Santa Claus?
He actually has done, but he kind of got shunned by Hollywood after some of his anti-Semitic remarks. And he's been working on some really large projects.
He's been working on movies. He just hasn't been in front of the camera a lot.
True. But he did have he had a movie called, I think, Get the Gringo that went straight to streaming service, was on Netflix. He's had a couple that have came out that were okay. They're not like your typical blockbuster type Mel Gibson movie. But I know he's also put a lot of time and energy into writing and producing and working on the sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
Right, I just heard
so he's
about
got
that.
other movies out there in the works that have been passion projects of his for a long time. But to see him then sneak in with a Santa Claus movie, it caught me completely off guard.
It's one of those things where I sat in silence by myself for probably like 2 minutes. Like I couldn't even muster a thought after watching that movie because it caught me off guard. I had no prep for it. And then
I just want to describe this. This is the screenshot cover for the trailer. It's Mel Gibson. Just looking, he's wearing just a standard red beanie, but not like a bright red. It's like a burgundy knit stocking. He's got the beard, but it's kind of a dirtyish white beard with a mustache, and it's got a little curl to it. But he's
looks
got
like coal.
He's got like a 45 pistol in his hand, aiming it right to the side of the camera, so you're just catching the edge of it. And that's the cover thing for the trailer, and it's the Fatman. And if you didn't realize that this is a Santa Claus movie, that Santa Claus is holding a gun in the trailer, it's a little different.
It just looks like a Taken type movie or something like that.
It almost feels like, there's this big movement to do the dark horror movie Christmas movies, like Krampus and some of the other ones. It feels like some weird version of where we're just getting the hardcore Santa Claus that kicks butt and takes names.
If there's one lesson that can be learned for this, it's that not even Santa Claus is immune from 2020.
Oh my goodness. It's coming for everybody here. But it certainly did. I'll say this. It brightened my day when I watched it. It gave me a good laugh. It made me want to see now there's a lot of trailers that we watch for this this podcast that I'm kind of like, I will most likely wait for video to see this movie because it did not look good.
This is a day one for me. I don't even care.
It was one of those ones I watched it and I was like, I want to see this just to see like the action of it. It's like I can't even really peg exactly what it feels like other than a Lethal Weapon Christmas movie. And Lethal Weapon, by the way, also takes place at Christmas, but it's not a Christmas movie. Not like people who try and claim Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
This is finally our one where we can be like, no, this is a Christmas action movie.
This is Santa Claus having to defend his life and defend his choice to give coal to a kid. And he's willing to stand up and fight for it. It's pretty awesome.
I'm very excited for it.
But the scene when all the FBI agents are with him in the barn near all the reindeer, and he's warning them about the different ones because what they'll do to them and the attitudes that they have was choice also.
I greatly enjoy it. Cannot wait for that movie. And just because he's fallen into obscurity, I didn't think anytime soon I'd be saying I'd look forward to a Mel Gibson movie, but here we are.
Absolutely, and I know that he's done a lot more behind the scenes production, direction type stuff. But there was a time when Mel Gibson was like the go-to A-list leading man, action star, and he's kind of done that thing where he drifted off into a little bit of obscurity. Like all new Bruce Willis has been cast out into that space, and apart from the Expendables, apart from the Expendables or Rambo 17, Sylvester Stallone's made his way out in that direction. All of them do. It's nice to see someone cycling back and getting into something. Whether this will be a hit movie because it's rated R, and I don't know if it's going to be a blockbuster, but it looks awesome.
I already feel like this is like I'm going into it expecting that I don't care what anyone feels about this movie. It's going to be my kind of movie. Like just that weird, quirky, probably kind of bad, but also awesome. A lot of quotable lines and just ridiculous.
You can already tell that it's going to have the 80s one-liners laced throughout the whole thing.
Let's go.
How many 80s one-liners do you quote in your standard daily conversation still to today? Like, there's so many of them. That was one of the great things about 80s action movies is you could pull all the one-liners.
I'd just say 80s movies in general, because the amount of times they say strange things are afoot at the Circle K is often.
Oh, absolutely. They're all over the place. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it definitely surprised me. It was one of those pleasant surprises that sometimes you see a trailer and after you watch it, you're like, well, that movie should be going straight to DVD or straight to streaming now, which usually you don't even see trailers for those. They just pop up on Netflix.
Right.
And then you only see the trailer on the what's coming.
Well, it's because Netflix is notoriously awful at advertising anything that they have. If it's not Stranger Things, they don't understand how to market it. They're like, we got a movie.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of like the movie Extraction, which turned out to be fantastic, and they did a very poor job kind of bolstering that with Chris Hemsworth as a leading man.
And the Russo brothers attached.
Yes.
The most I ever saw for the movie was on Instagram.
Yeah.
Nothing else, not YouTube or anything else. Anyways, so that was the last topic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have any suggestions, you can visit, or for things that we should cover, you can visit the Facebook page. Fans of Fandom is where we get most of our things from. And then also follow us there's a new YouTube channel, and that's just Flickin' Real Fancast. And also follow us on SoundCloud if you don't have time to watch and you'd rather just give a listen.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I've been Jesse, and this has been Scott. Thank you for joining us so much, and keep it real. See you guys later.